Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks, where every word matters. The presidential election in the US is of a paramount importance to the future of NATO's eastern flank and the balance of power in our part of Europe. And to discuss it, we're joined by Jakub Janda, Director of the European Values Center for Security Policy. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. Well, first of all, would you agree that the ongoing presidential election in the US is one of the most important elections we had wherever in the world during the past decade, at least, given the current geopolitical situation?
I'm not sure about the decade, but for Europe, this is definitely the most decisive global elections in last at least 5 years for sure. Because maybe the 2016 elections when Donald Trump won for the first time was really decisive as well. But you are right, currently with the situation with Russia destroying parts of Ukraine and having the upper hand in some areas, the situation is very, very critical for European security. So that's why what happens in the US elections actually has a huge impact on European defense.
Mm-hmm. And in one of the latest surveys, the majority of polls considered the potential victory of Donald Trump to be a really bad choice for Warsaw, for Poland. Now, do you understand these sentiments? And I'm also wondering about Czech thoughts on the matter.
I fully understand that, and there are similar polls showing the Czech population basically would not prefer Donald Trump to win for various reasons, but there is some clear majority in the Czech population on this. But obviously we are not the voters. Voters are in the US, so we only can follow what they decide on. But the reasons are quite simple and straightforward, because for our region, Central Europe, widely Central Eastern European countries, for us the most important security and strategic agenda is the survival of Ukraine. Because if Ukraine would lose or would be forced to effectively surrender, that would have huge implications for the whole region. And that's why I believe many people in Poland, Czech Republic, and our Central European region are afraid, because basically what Donald Trump is saying is that he would force Ukraine to some kind of a deal. And we all know that that's pretty much would be a very negative deal for Ukraine, because Ukraine does not have the upper hand at this moment, unfortunately.
Well, people in our part of Europe understand it quite clear, because the war is next door to us. But on the other hand, well, for example, the Polish diaspora in the US traditionally votes for a Republican candidate. I'm wondering about the Americans of Czech origin in the US.
Americans of Czech origin, I honestly don't have the exact data on this, and I'm sure many of them basically vote based on their domestic preferences, because it is mainly a domestic battle between the both parties in the US. But if you look back to what the kind of Czech or Czechoslovak diaspora in the US has been pushing for, that has been the security of Central Europe, like getting the whole region into NATO, which was not the obvious choice for many American politicians during that time. So that's where I think their interest might be in foreign policy as well.
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, well, we have Poland and Czech Republic in one camp, let's say, and on the other hand, we have Slovakia. Now, how is Bratislava regarding the American elections?
Well, the current Slovak prime minister, the current Slovak government and the president are basically supporting Russia, unfortunately, and China as well. So honestly, I have no idea what they would like, because we clearly see that they would like Ukraine to lose first, and they would like basically the American involvement in our region to be decreased. That's definitely what the Hungarian government and clearly the Slovak government wants as well. So maybe their hope would be that if Donald Trump would win the presidency, he would basically force Ukraine to surrender. But in practical terms, that would actually mean that there would be millions of Ukrainian refugees going towards Slovakia, Poland, Czech Republic, because they would be basically running away from the Russian murderers, from the massacres which they could expect Russia to do, as Russia has been doing it for the last couple of years. So that would really be bad for the whole region, regardless of who you like politically or not.
Well, Hungarian Prime Minister, a country which you already mentioned has rather close relations with Donald Trump. Just to remind our viewers that Hungary's motto for the current European, for the presidency in the EU is "Make Europe Great Again," very much like Trump's slogan "Make America Great Again." So, having said that, and given the fact that due to its foreign policy on Ukraine and close ties with Russia, Budapest has become sort of a pariah within the EU. How important are the elections for Hungary?
Very decisive, because basically Hungarian government is facing a lot of pressure also from the current US administration under Joe Biden. So basically what Viktor Orban wants is that he wants to use his friendship or partnership with Donald Trump and his crowd to basically ease up any American pressure on Hungary. This is basically the only thing he wants. He doesn't want Radio Free Europe broadcasting in Hungarian language. He doesn't want US foundations, US government supporting NGOs and journalists in Hungary. That's what Viktor Orban wants. And at the same time, he wants to keep getting the dirty money from Russia and China, which he and his oligarchs are getting, which is obviously contradictory to interest of Donald Trump or the Republican Party, which is very hawkish on China or against China. So there is a potential division where Viktor Orban is basically a puppet of China, while the Republican Party wants to be tough on China. So I hope that the American Republicans will understand that Viktor Orban is not a great conservative, but he's effectively, to some extent, a puppet or proxy of Chinese Communist Party.
So far we've discussed the Visegrad 4 countries. Now I'd like to ask you about the rest of our region. What are their hopes? What about the Baltic states, for example?
Well, the Baltic states, for understandable reasons, are scared. They are scared of the potential Russian attack because they see how much Russia is murdering people in Ukraine. So my understanding would be that their preference would be President Harris, even though they see how little the Biden administration and the expected Harris administration likely, that their support for Ukraine is limited or relatively small, but it's actually quite stable, and we cannot really expect Biden or Harris to be pressuring Ukraine to surrender in these harsh terms, as candidate Trump is talking about it. So that would be my understanding, that basically the Baltic states would prefer a Harris administration just because of the predictability and the lack of expectable pressure from Washington towards them or towards Ukraine to effectively give up to Russia.
And Romania and the Balkans?
I think for Romania is the same. Romania is in a very, it's not in such a tough position as Baltic states are, but it is facing the Russian threat and Russian pressure as well, although through Moldova, where Russia is very hard for trying to interfere inside Moldovan democracy. In the Balkans, that's definitely a different ballgame. Serbian Prime Minister is also a great friend of Russia and China, similar to like Viktor Orban. So for him, it's a mixed feeling. There are Serbian links in the potential Trump team as well. So definitely, I would say that would be their preference. For the other countries, I'm not really sure, honestly.
Thank you so much for explaining all these connections to us. Jakub Janda, Director of the European Values Center for Security Policy, was our guest this afternoon. Thank you again. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for watching, and stay with us for much more here on TVP World.